So I'm here remotely tonight to share with you, and really just doing uh, the first part of a 30,000 foot overview of really, I believe, how we're poised to disrupt the biggest industry in the world, which is the financial industry. And why does the financial industry really even need disruption? And if you think about it, it's an industry that's hundreds of years old. If there's an industry that's trapped in time and tradition, I would say it's the financial industry. And if it's done such a great job, then I think that a lot more people would be financially literate. Unfortunately, a majority of Americans are financially illiterate. And until now, there's really not been a very good solution. Schools don't really teach this. Families and at home, we really don't learn this unless you have a wealthy family that you come from already, and maybe you have the benefit of that. I certainly didn't growing up, and so we want to talk about some of those challenges. My part is going to talk about some of the challenges and just a little glimpse as well into some of what we teach. Now, Anthony, my partner, who is at our office, he is going to identify some of the solutions, as well as maybe what your role might be in helping us advance our mission and stamping out financial illiteracy, which is our mission. And you might be here for different reasons. Some of you might be a client of ours, and if you are, we're not in business if it's not for you. Okay, so we really appreciate you and welcome you to hear maybe a little deeper dive of what we're all about, what we're doing to extend financial literacy to families out there. Maybe you're a potential client. Maybe you just want to know more about how money works and just level up your own financial literacy. Maybe you're like one of 80% of Americans who's totally frustrated with your current career, and you're looking for a way that you could have more time, more control of your life. Maybe you want to have a greater impact in other people's lives. And so maybe you're looking for potential career change. You could be someone who loves your job. I know a lot of people love their careers, and maybe you come to the realization that you just need a little bit more horsepower financially to have your financial goals be met. And so perhaps looking at what we're doing is another way to enhance that. And still I'm sure there's many of you who are centers of influence, people who you got all your financial ducks in a row, you love what you do for a living and how you impact people already. And the person who invited you is really just, hey, looking for your support. You may be able to make introductions. And I remember when I first got started in this business at 22, almost 23 years old, still in college at University of Illinois. I really relied on people who were centers of influence to help me get started, because what kind of credibility did I have? I could barely even afford the gas money to come back and forth from University of Illinois, let alone be able to help other people with their money. And I'm just very grateful that many people did help me with my career and getting started. So as you see on the screen there, and I think you see my screen, it says Evolve Financial Partners, Advocates for Your Legacy. And who are we? Really just, we're a collaborative team of entrepreneurs, and our leadership team has a combined 150 plus years of experience helping our clients as well as teammates achieve their goals financially. Why we picked Evolve as a name, really, we've had to evolve. We started, many of the leadership teams started in the 90s, late 90s. There's a lot's happened since then, as we know, but from the late 90s, when you could throw a dart in the dartboard and anything you invested money in made money, and then from there to 9/11 .com bubble burst, right? We had to realize very quickly that it's not just about chasing returns. We had to find ways to protect our clients' money as well. And then we went into 2008 and 2009, the financial crisis. Thankfully, since we learned some of those lessons, we were able to protect many of our clients' incomes and certainly their retirement and their assets during that time. which helped boost our business. And that's really when we start to grow quite a bit. And fast forward, we had about 10 years of complacency in the markets, and then here's COVID-19, and boy, are we happy that we partnered up with the Wealth Wave, because about 2 years ago, our leadership teams said, you know what, there's going to be, we know that technology is the future. We want to be we want to not just be part of that, we want to be cause in that. We want to be at the cutting edge. And we didn't want to have to reinvent the wheel as a leadership team and invest millions of dollars into technology. So we partnered with the Wealth Wave, who had already been doing that and working on the economies of scale of being able to build a business that is centered on financial literacy and education, and also being able to deliver it with technology. And boy, 2 years ago, are we not happy that we made that decision? We knew that technology was the future to be able to deliver this message, but we didn't know how fast the future was going to get here. And so now it's clearly here. We were already doing a lot virtually. Now we're doing almost 100% virtual. I think we'll get back to, we still have to balance the high tech and the high touch, which is why we have over 10,000, about 15,000 square feet of office of our learning center in Oak Brook Terrace, and there's hundreds of those across the country. So we want to have that part too, but it's really, we know that we want to have a bigger footprint, and that's why we feel that we're going to disrupt the financial industry. And you see Wealth Wave, a force for disruption, right? So, and Wealth Wave is also the How Money Works company. Believe it or not, they have that trademarked. So just, can you imagine no other financial company out there figured out that How Money Works should be trademarked? It's such a valuable thing. And so we recognize that we wanted to partner with this group. And so when we look at Wealth Wave here, and you look at just what we're doing, we realize that to be effective today, we first have to start with the families we serve, right? We have to have a business that serves our clients' interests first, and breaking the cycle of financial illiteracy, teaching families how money really works. Then we help them with this knowledge to create a legacy for themselves, and that's kind of speaks so well with our language of advocates for your legacy as part of our firm. So, but once we realize that that's a core here, we also have to know that is there support for the leadership team, the people who are actually helping spearhead this. We have to have people who are educators who are helping the clients and helping people. And so we are also a force for those leaders as well. So, and here's my mom calling me, probably wondering how I'm doing. Let me turn my phone off. So, so two things that we really do here at Wealth Wave. Number one, we teach people how money works. And some of you may have received our How Money Works book, Stop Being a Sucker, which is, I think, one of the best 1-hour financial literacy reads there is. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And the second thing is we have an E to E campaign, which is helping employees, the first E, transition to become business leaders and entrepreneurs, right? So they can actually build a future for themselves. And so there's really a two-pronged approach we have in helping people and really build a legacy for themselves and their family. And we're part of one of the biggest industries in the world. If I say one of it's the $109 trillion is the financial industry. If you looked at real estate and retail combined, it's almost twice as big as those next two industries combined. So it's a mammoth industry. So if it's so big, my question is always, if this is such a big industry, how come so many people are clueless about their own personal finance? And that's going to shine a light on really, what the balance of this presentation is going to explore. When you look at the number one challenge that we see facing in the world today, maybe with the COVID and everything happening, we may not automatically think of this, but if you think of can you think of another problem that affects 5 billion people around the world? Is the number one economic crisis in the world is financial illiteracy, because 5 billion people, can you imagine not knowing how to read or write? About 100 years ago, that might be the case, right? Kind of similar to financial illiteracy is today. And so, but now, how are you going to, 100 years ago, you could get by with not really understanding that much, because most people, you didn't have to worry about retirement because you worked till 65 and you died at 67 or earlier. So it wasn't necessary. Plus Social Security and pensions were enough. Now we really need to understand how this stuff works, because getting old is a new thing. 2/3 of everyone who's ever hit 65 in the history of the world are alive today. Okay, so that just means getting old is a new thing, and now we have a whole new set of circumstances, of things we have to plan for and be educated about financially. So that's why our mission is to stamp out financial illiteracy everywhere, so families can dream again. Because if you understand how money works, and you start to see your future being brighter, you start not, when we are uncertain about our future, it creates stress, it creates a disease. Actually, it creates all sorts of health issues. But if we understand and we have a confidence in our future, there's no more freeing feeling than that. And that's what we want to deliver for folks. As Angela had mentioned, Aegon is our parent company. Aegon is one of the largest financial conglomerates in the world. They are based in the Netherlands. Their ticker symbols AEG, traded on the New York Stock Exchange. They actually did this survey here, that they conducted this looking at, they said 70% of people worldwide are financially illiterate, and it was just a 3-question survey that if everyone should be able to answer these questions, and most 70% could not in the world, and we all think that our country in the United States, that we must be head and shoulders above everyone else, because we have the wealthiest country in the world, right? Well, we're ranked 7th in the world, behind India and Spain. So we're actually not at the top, and I think that's there's something wrong with that. We should, with all the resources we have, we should definitely not be 7th in the world. And it's interesting, there's a correlation between the happiest countries in the world and how financially literate countries are. So we also happen to be the 7th happiest country in the world, right? Which goes hand in hand with how financially literate we are. And so our vision is really, to have a world where people are financially literate and have all the tools and support and knowledge, really to better themselves. And then again, the legacy piece is for their children as well, so that we could break those cycles. So here's a couple forces that are standing in our way right now. And one is scarcity of financial education, right? My family, personally, my parents were wonderful. They are wonderful teachers. They both were in education, but not in financial education. They saved very well. They just had no idea how money works, so they didn't really have their money working for them. And so I'm fortunate that at least the discipline of saving was instilled in me. But it didn't happen at home for me. And only a very small fraction of people out there, maybe 1% of Americans, they get this kind of education at home. Okay, everyone else has to rely on someone else. What is that someone else? Well, the school system, it certainly maybe tries. I know the government maybe tries, and they're getting better. There's only 21 states out of 50 that require any kind of financial education in high school. So that's a problem, right? How would that not be top of the list? Now it's gotten better. Just several years ago, it was only 4 states out of 50. But we're talking only one financial class in high school. So I don't think that's necessarily robust enough for most people to chart their course financially in the right way. So we're not getting it from schools for sure. And we're not getting it home. And and certainly the other challenge is the financial industry itself. That's a second major force that's not doing a very good job. And why? It's kind of by design. You ever look at the biggest buildings in downtown? They're all financial companies. So they make lots of money, but who do they serve? Okay. You ever walk into a bank? I'm not here to rip on banks, by the way, but you ever walk into a bank and ask what to do with your money? And what do they tell you? They tell you about the CD rate. They tell you about a savings account. Unless you have a certain amount. Now, when you have a certain amount of money, then they're magically a different person comes and talks to you, and there's a roped off section, right? The velvet roped off section, right, where people who have money get to go talk to a personal advisor. Then so it's really reserved for a select few. And if they don't want to, if you don't have enough money, the financial industry is not designed to really be able to help the masses. It's kind of like Neiman Marcus, and there's no Costco, right there. So there's a lot of the financial companies that just only want to help the people who already have wealth, and everybody else kind of has to figure out for themselves. And I don't know about you, but when I open up my mailbox, you know what kind of financial help I get? Uh, Half the mail is 0% interest offers for debt, or this other credit card, or this other way that I can borrow money. That's the solution the financial industry has for the middle class, is to borrow money and to get more in debt. Not here's how you break free from all this. And I think that's a fundamental problem that the industry has to deal with. And since they're not, we're here to do it. So here's the challenge we face is we don't have enough boots on the ground. We don't have enough people to make a real impact. Now, we are making impact. We have almost 10,000 licensed professionals so far, which is among the biggest in the industry in the United States. But it's not nearly enough for the hundreds of millions of people just in North America alone. And we're not even scraping the surface as far as talking about the world at this point. But our next milestone, we want to grow tenfold. We need to identify some people who really want to carry this mission in their heart as well, to whatever capacity that they see fit for themselves and their family. I just look at 100,000 people starts to have the critical mass number we need if we're going to make an impact. We just have to have a bigger army. And our mission is really help the little guy. It is to help the people who are left behind, to create a bigger footprint, to fish with a net, not just with a hook. We want to be able to make a much bigger impact, I think, than the industry currently is. One of the things that we have already in place, we have financial learning centers, which is a How Money Works learning center. Our one, maybe you might not be in Illinois. That's where my business is based. I know we have people on from all over the place here, but there's a few hundred financial centers, learning centers across the country right now. Ours is in Oak Brook, is one of the biggest that we have, and routinely prior to COVID, and now we're starting to get back right into once a month, getting this high touch side back of our business. But routinely, weekly, we're having open to the public How Money Works classes that we do 3-4 days a week. That we offer that in our space. And let me tell you, it's not cheap to have an office in Oak Brook Terrace. So it just means that we are very committed to having a space big enough to help those who really want to seek the information out. So some statistics here, I mean, and you're going to start seeing some characters here. These are characters from Andy Horner, who illustrated our How Money Works book, Stop Being a Sucker. So these are some of the characters from the book. But, just to talk about, gosh, 1 out of 2 people you run across, they don't have enough money for a $400 emergency right now. Think about that. Your car breaks down. What do you do? right? If you're one of those who can't afford that, 43% of student loan borrowers are not making any payments to their loans. So that means their loans can continue to grow and become worth more to Uncle Sam, unfortunately, a lot, and cost us a lot more. Almost $10,000 is the average credit card debt. uh, that means that if you just pay the minimums, you'll pay almost 4 times as much as that. And 1/3 of people have zero savings set aside. So we know that there's a big challenge and that we're faced with. And so those big challenges need to be met with state of the art education. And our education system, it starts with this How Money Works book. We searched high and low for a way to deliver this education, so we couldn't find one that met our standards, and then we have this book. And I'll tell you, the people who partnered up to write this book are world class. Tom Matthews is a chairman of our company, and been 35 plus years of industry experience doing what we're doing. Steve Siebold, you could Google him. He's a national best-selling author. He's actually, if you've ever read the book or heard of the book, Think and Grow Rich, he's kind of, Napoleon Hill wrote that book. He interviewed a bunch of millionaires, self-made millionaires and billionaires. Steve Siebold is like the modern day Napoleon Hill. He has the biggest working study of millionaires and billionaires who he's interviewed, over 1,300 self-made millionaires and billionaires, and written many books on the subject. One of my favorite books is 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class, that he wrote. Well, he's always been a vendor to us, to our company, and he teaches, he Caterpillar, Johnson and Johnson, Toyota. I mean, he's a corporate trainer. And so he did have the same role with our company as well. Well, a couple of years ago, he actually wanted to do a deeper dive on our company. So he wrote a book on our company. And his wife said to him, "Hey, you're so obsessed with this company, why don't you just partner up with them?" And so he joined about a year ago. He joined our firm, and with Tom Matthews wrote this book. And that's where How Money Works, Stopping a Sucker was born. So this is our financial literacy education system, and it meets 100% of our criteria. See, when we look for other books and other things that we could use, even if you wanted to get like a Finance for Dummies book, it's like this thick and with very small print, and most people are too intimidated to even crack it open. So we wanted to have something that was engaging, that was fun. If you picked up the book and you read it, you probably already know you could read it in like an hour and have no more than 95% of Americans about personal finance in an hour. There's engaging, humorous, it's like almost like a comic book how it reads. So it's engaging. There's bite-sized content, so we don't get overwhelmed. It's very clear and simple in how it is presented. So it increases our comprehension. It's up to date. So everything that we're faced with in today's world, we handle those things with honesty, and talking about what today's consumers are faced with. And it's step by step. So we have a step by step, really, manual that helps people start their journey towards financial freedom. And I believe working towards what I like to call a work optional lifestyle, where one day finances don't dictate to you whether you have to work or not. So what we do know is that with this huge need we have, there's a big opportunity, because every generation's been impacted. If you think about the millennials, millennials really don't trust financial institutions that much right now as it is. But what I do know is they have tons of student debt, and are really struggling. Many of them are not buying homes, or they're delaying getting married and having kids because of all the debt they're already strapped with. Gen Xers, the sandwich generation, I'm a Gen Xer, helping, dealing with, what's likely for me to be helping one of my aging parents, as well as having a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old at home. So that's the sandwich generation. Then you have the baby boomers who really are behind the 8 ball, because this is the first generation where the younger part of the baby boomers really are way behind on what they've saved. The older baby boomers may still have a pension, Social Security. Younger baby boomers, most of them don't have a pension. So it's really all up to them, and they kind of unfortunately got a late start because of, just especially the last decade of the first decade of the millennia, where it was the lost decade, and that's where the prime income earning years was. So as a result, the average millennial has $23,000 saved for retirement. Gen Xers have 66,000. Baby boomers have 152,000. So if you're right about to retire and you're a baby boomer with $152,000, you're going to say, when can I retire? I might say, well, you might retire for a few years, but when are you going to go back to work would be another question, because that's clearly not enough money to get where you want to go. And that leads right into the real fear that many people have, which more baby boomers actually fear running out of money. 63% running out of money, they fear more than death itself, right? And 53% of Americans currently are unhappy at their work. So they don't want to stay at work, and they may have to. They may have to stay working many more years than they ever imagined. But I want you to try and imagine flying a plane with one wing, right? That plane is not going to get off the ground. And if it is off the ground, it's going to be flying in circles until it crashes, right? So Social Security is only designed for 40% of your retirement. 401k, that might be a small smidgen there, but everything else is personal saving, and most people are not nearly on track. This is a scary picture, and what it shows is that, hey, if you're trying to get to a certain place financially, you need to know, first of all, where you need to be to have the kind of income you want in retirement. Let's just say, for example, you wanted $100,000 a year in retirement. Do you have any idea how much money you have to have for that to be a reality? Okay, well, that's a good thing to know, right? Well, how much of that's going to be taken care of by Social Security? Well, let's say it's 50,000. It won't be 50,000, right? Let's even forget that it's their Social Security for a second. How much money do we need for $100,000 a year? It's about $2.2 to $2.4 million you'd have to have. Okay, so well, that's kind of crazy when you consider that most people have $152,000 who are about to retire. So we're way off, and looking at this kind of like looks like a mountain, and climbing that mountain it takes an advisor. It takes someone who's going to help guide you. If you're going to climb a real mountain, for example, let's say Mount McKinley or Mount Everest, most people who climb a mountain, they don't die on the way up. If they die on the way down, and that's because they ran out of supplies, food, they got exhausted, right? So we may get to a certain point where we think we have enough, and the real challenge is, how do you have a spending strategy and an income strategy in retirement to not outlive your money? So if you're going to climb a mountain, you need a Sherpa. You need someone who's going to know the landscape and know exactly what you need so that you can get back to the bottom of the mountain. And same thing in your personal finances. We need to have someone guiding us to make sure we can have enough income that lasts us the rest of our life. And certainly we don't want to be running out when we're 80, 82 years old or even younger. So we have to have enough where we could have what we would call a reliable income, something that has guaranteed. Let's make sure that our income we have a certain paycheck that comes in no matter what. Like if you have a pension, great. If you don't, how do you maybe shave off a portion of your assets to act like a pension in addition to Social Security? That's your paycheck. Then we want a play check. A play check is something that hey, my bucket list items, I wanted to travel around the world. I wanted to do this. I want to do all the things you ever dreamed of doing in retirement. That takes money beyond just keeping the lights on in your home or eating, right? Or, paying the bills. Okay. So you have to have a plan for both. And what we start everyone is the same place. And this is all in the book, which if you haven't read it yet, make sure you let the person who invited you on tonight so we can get a copy in your hands. You could buy it on Amazon, but I'm sure the person who invited you would be willing to give you a copy. And we talk about these 7 money milestones. Okay. It all starts first with financial education. We believe it doesn't matter product, service, any kind of thing that's out there. If you don't understand it first, it's not going to make any sense to you. So first we have to start with education. Then we could talk about proper protection, making sure, hey, if something happens to Todd Kemp right now, if I don't make it home from going out to the grocery store and I don't come back, who's going to replace that financial engine? What's going to replace that financial engine? Well, I have to protect myself with insurance to do that. Or if my house burns down, I need to have homeowners insurance. So basic things we're talking about here. I need an emergency fund. Okay, what happens if my car does break down? Well, I need to have money set aside, and we recommend 3 to 6 months liquid available, something you can get your hands on right away to be able to handle that. Debt management. Well, we got to first know where we're at with our debt. What kind of debts do we have? There's some would say good debt or debt we just want to manage, and there's some debt you just want to eliminate altogether, like credit cards. Okay, and we have to itemize, understand how to do that effectively, and there's very effective approaches to do that. Cash flow. Many cases we need more money. We need to either create more money by being able to maybe cut back in certain areas, not buy all the lattes, or right. Maybe we find ways to reduce our expenses, or another way to increase our cash flow is to make more money, right? And so that's something we're going to explore. And then building our wealth. One day we have enough wealth where we could live a want to life, not a have to life. That's that work optional lifestyle that I was referring to. And one day you have an estate that you want to protect, that doesn't go to your least favorite uncle when you pass away, that's actually earmarked to those you love. And so estate planning is not just for the family with the house on the hill. Estate planning is for everyone who has any assets at all. And just having a will, a healthcare directives, power of attorney, basic things, a trust perhaps, okay? Different things like that. We have all those solutions as well, but we want to have people first understand through education how this works, and then work step by step on a plan for themselves. So I'm going to take a few minutes here before I pass over to my partner, Anthony, to just give you a little glimpse, tip of the iceberg here on some of the education that we bring to families. One of these is something that changed my life. When I first saw this, the rule of 72, I was in college at the time, and I went to 5 years at I thought a good school. It is a good school, University of Illinois in Champaign. And for some reason, maybe I skipped class that day, I never learned about the rule of 72 at that school. I wondered, how is it possible that I couldn't have learned this? And this is something that it'll seem like magic, but it was actually discovered by a pretty smart gentleman named Albert Einstein, who called it the 8th wonder of the world and mankind's greatest invention. And it's really just a mental math shortcut to help you figure out how long it takes to double your money if you're earning a certain rate of return. So if you take the number 72 and you divide it by the return you're getting, the interest you're getting, it'll tell you how long it takes. So 1% rate of return, for example, 72 divided by 1 is 72 years to double your money. Well, you could extrapolate that out to all these, right? And you could see that, at 3% it would be every 24 years, at 6% every 12 years, and so on and so forth. So you could actually look and see, well, if you had $10,000 that you started with, right, and you're 19 years old, and you're only getting 1%, your money would be not even doubled one time, because that's not 72 years yet, right? By the time you're 67. But at 3%, it would double twice. At 6%, every 12 years it doubles. So it'd be 4 doubles. You'd have your 10 grand would grow to $160,000 at 6%. At 9%, it would double every 8 years. So you could see it's $640,000. Well, what if you got 12% rate of return? If that was possible, your $10,000 would be worth $2.56 million by the time you're 67 years old. Now, how many people understand or know that? Now, many people are like, well, where am I going to get 12%? Or where, let's not worry about that. Let's just think about the concept here of that there are many people who are earning 12%. Okay. Many families for generations have earned 12%. And how far ahead are those families than someone, let's say, earning 1%? I'd say pretty far ahead. But the problem is most people are saving in a place that is not even on this chart that I'm showing you. Okay. Because we know that there's about $10 trillion sitting in accounts making an average of 0.09%, not 1%, 0.09%. That would mean that it would take 800 years for the $10 trillion that's out there that's sitting in a bank earning 0.09%, 800 years. That's like back before the Magna Carta was signed. I mean, we're talking, and here's our character Clark, who says, I'm sure my great grandchildren will be thrilled, which I think is pretty funny, right? But that contrasts that though with this challenge. The average credit card, which is issued by the same institution, is 17%. So take 72 divided by the average credit card, 17%. It takes our debt 4.2 years to double. See, the rule of 72 doesn't care who it works for. It could work for you. It could work for the bank. So in this case, you ever wonder why, again, the biggest buildings in every town tend to be banks and financial institutions? It's because of exactly this reason, $10 trillion working for them at the tune of doubling every 4.2 years, but doubling for us every 800 years. There's a big problem, right? And Clark says, well, do you ever notice that there's suckers they at least give you, right? When you sign up for your savings account. And that's why we have it in the book, Stop Being a Sucker, right? Because we don't want people to be taken advantage of anymore. That stops with understanding this stuff. And the better return you get, the more you need to understand how money works. The more you have to be able to process the ups and downs. You have to understand more. So, and it's not just about, how much return you're getting. It's also about when you get started. The time aspect, the time value of money is so incredible. When you consider if you're 20 years old, that it only takes $113 a month, minor monthly adjustments in your budgeting, that you could put aside at a 9% rate of return, that by the time you're 67, you'd have $1 million. Well, wait a few years. Now it's $178. Then a few more years, it's $282. By the time you're 40 years old, $731 a month. Well, what if you're 50 years old? You hadn't gotten started yet. $2,000. Well, if your average income at 50 is about $50,000 a year, that's half of your paycheck that you've got to be committed to saving now because of how long you waited. Now, if we're in that situation, there's a whole bunch of people and a lot of evidence of people who are, you're going to want to pay attention to my partner, Anthony, who's going to close up, because he's going to share a way that you can maybe supercharge that aspect and really increase your cash flow dramatically. But I want to just say, look, procrastination is one of the biggest challenges we all face. And it's never convenient to start investing, start saving for your future. It's always, hey, when I'm done paying this bill, when my car's paid off, when this thing's done, then I'll start. When I get my New Year's resolution, I know that'll be on the list of my New Year's resolution, but it's always in the future. And if something's always in the future, you never end up getting started, do you? And that's just human nature 101. We have to explain this to people so they can see the impact that procrastination really has. Also taxes, okay? We go in super deep dive on this stuff when we sit down one-on-one, but there's 3 ways your money could be taxed. It could be taxed now. When you invest in something every year, you pay tax on it. There's advantages to that. It's usually very liquid. You can get your hands on it pretty quickly. But if you want to have more money grow for you for retirement, you need to have more tax advantage. So tax later is I pay no taxes when I put my money in. It grows without any tax, except later on, I got to pay tax. Okay, that's tax later. And then there's tax never, which is I pay my tax up front and it grows tax deferred. And later on, when I go to take the money, I pay zero tax. So would you rather pay taxes on the seed, right? So if you had $10,000, would you rather pay taxes on the $10,000? Or would you rather pay taxes on the harvest, $250,000 it grows to? Which would you rather pay taxes on? Well, the answer is, no one really knows really for 100% which will work out. But if taxes are bigger in the future, you probably want to get them taken care of now versus later, right? And, I don't know if you think that taxes are going up or down in the future. I know just with this recent pandemic, the federal government's spending between $5 and $6 trillion more. We're close to $30 trillion in unfunded liability right now. I don't know about you. I don't know who's going to pay for that. Usually that means that either we're going to have to spend less as a government, or we'll have to pay more in tax in the future. And I don't know who's going to be in government 20 years from now. I don't know who the president's going to be. We don't even know who's going to be in government 3 months from now, let alone 20 years from now. So do we really want to roll the dice on how big of a partner Uncle Sam's going to be with us in our retirement? So we want to find solutions for families that alleviate or eliminate taxes down the road. And so just one, I'm not going to get deep into this, but one of our flagship products, if you can imagine, what's a Swiss Army knife? We call this a Swiss Army knife of financial services. Swiss Army knife is something you take with you camping that you only have to bring one of them, because you can pull open the fork, the spoon, the knife, the toothpick, the scissors, everything comes out of the Swiss Army knife, right? Everything you need. So if you had something like that could be foundational for a client, that could have zero market risk, they could also provide for your long-term care needs when you get older, that grows tax deferred, that allows you to pull money down tax-free to supplement your retirement, that allows you to leave a tax-free legacy for your heirs. Do you think that might be something you'd want to include in your financial toolbox, right? And so this is just one example of many things that we do. And again, we're not getting into the weeds on this at this point, but what I do want to do is end my part and introduce Anthony, who's been a great partner of mine for over 20 years, who's going to close us out and really share some of the real solutions we have in terms of perhaps what could your role possibly be helping us. So Anthony, are you, I need to unshare my screen, don't I?
Yes, Todd.
Okay, let me do that. Okay, I am unshared now.
Okay, share my screen.
We could all see you.
Okay. Let's see if that is. All right. Can you hear me okay there, Todd?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
All right. It's great to be in the office here with those that could join us. We've got a good group of people here with our 6 feet apart. And I think it's just good to get out of the house, isn't it? Right? Just get out and just go see some people other than, if you go to a restaurant and stuff. But I definitely miss coming here to the office. I miss seeing everybody, but I'm glad we're able to do this at least on a monthly basis for now, and we'll see what happens here in the future with the pandemic and everything. So I'm glad to see that Todd's doing well and his family's doing well, and we appreciate him sharing tonight. I think one of the things that it shows us is that we're a pandemic-proof business. How many businesses are pandemic-proof? And what do I mean is that we can function here for those that couldn't be here tonight. right? You're home. Todd couldn't be here tonight. His situation exactly why we avoid gatherings like this, right? And so, but he was still able to function. He was still able to deliver a message, which means that we don't have to be paralyzed by the fear that has been created because we can communicate through technology. And I think that's a testament to the power of what we have here in our platform. And I think Todd did an amazing job of really explaining why it's important to be part of this campaign. I mean, how many people need this information? That's why you're all here, right? Because you saw it for yourself and it captured your attention. And the reason why you probably joined was because you saw the value to share it with other people, right? And so for those of us who are guests here seeing this for the first time, because we have our associates here, as well as some guests, those who haven't become part of our business, because it isn't for everybody. I want to just share with you a little bit about our second mission. So our first mission is really to help people with the financial literacy. Everything he said, I want to repeat that. But the other one is to help be an advocate for people to move from being employees to entrepreneurs, okay? If you're an entrepreneur, you know some of the advantages of being an entrepreneur. I've had the fortunate opportunity to be an entrepreneur now. I'm just doing the math here. It's a long time, 24 years, actually. I've been an entrepreneur. And one of the things that I love about this business, the reason why I'm here, just to tell you really quick about my background, I was a student when I was first introduced to this, very similar to Todd, but I was also running a business, a system. It was a franchise. It was a painting contracting business. And so that was my first exposure to running a business with employees and the whole deal. And I tell you, I enjoyed that because I had an opportunity to work hard, get rewarded for my hard work. But there was one big problem that I had with that model. And that's the traditional business model. Owner, employee, right? The problem I have with that model is that the people that work for me could never be the owner in my business. There was not an ownership program. And if you think about it, isn't that how most businesses work? You start a business and then you expand, you get employees, right? And then they're never necessarily going to be co-owners with you because they're your employees. So therefore, it's really difficult to get people to want to actually stay with you on the long term. It's very difficult to retain high quality talent of people. And so that's why I saw this. I saw an opportunity to educate, because our family were immigrants to this country. My parents had no idea how this information worked. Nobody educated them. Even though we went to good schools and went to private schools and they worked to send us to these schools, we still didn't learn this information like many of you. So I saw a chance here to transfer that knowledge and teach. So what the E2E program really is it's a system where we teach others with mentors on how to develop their own practice, which is essentially what they did for me, okay? All right, let's see if this works now. Okay. Backwards. Okay. Now, there's a tremendous need. Now, as Todd said when he started, you may or may not be interested in the business as itself, but maybe you know someone that is. And so we appreciate all of our clients that have joined us tonight. So it's important for you to understand this side as well. And the reality is that the majority of people right now out there are looking, okay? In fact, Career Builder did a study that 4 out of 5 people do not like what they're doing and they want to change it. And it might not be that they don't enjoy their profession. They may actually enjoy being a nurse or being a teacher, but they don't necessarily like the system that they're a part of. They don't like the rules that have been created and how their industry has changed, and that's why they want to make a change. Some, they just don't earn enough, and then some of us have just been hit with a reality check. When you think about what happened with the pandemic, there was roughly 30 million people were unemployed. I don't know what the number is today. I know it's gone down quite a bit. And so many people were desperate to get what check was that? Right? They gave us that $1,200 check, right? Stimulus check, if you want to call it. And it was good. Hey, I took it. I was happy to get it. But so many were depending on that. It goes back to the money milestone. People don't have an emergency fund. So the need has never been bigger for what we do. And so when you look at this, 51% of people are actually actively looking for a better opportunity, okay? Now, why do people want to have their own business? Well, how does the idea of no boss sound? No limit, right? No required work hours, no required office attendance, no problems working from home, no vacation day restriction, no layoffs. The biggest thing for me is just the freedom of having no limitations and the opportunity to basically take back control of your life, right? And I saw that. So one of the things I appreciate about my parents is that I think that they maxed out that working hard for the employee. At least they had a job, and because of them, we were able to have the opportunities that we did, but they never took that step to become entrepreneurs, which is really the next step of advancement, and I believe that, right? The lifestyle. So when you look at the market, right, Todd mentioned the baby boomers earlier, but I mean, you look at this group of people, it's one of the largest markets in the United States, right? They were responsible for helping this country become the greatest nation on earth. They were the baby boom generation. You know, a lot of them right now, as you saw, don't have enough money for retirement. So many of them are looking for other vehicles to earn more money. Retirement is no longer an option for many retirement-age people, right? But there's another group of baby boomers that actually are financially okay, but they're just not ready to give up. They still have a lot more to give. In fact, I met with a gentleman yesterday. Came here to the office. He wasn't scared. He came in. We talked. 75 years old, right? Gentleman's financially independent, plays golf 3 days a week, but he's got a lot of energy. He's got more to give. The corporate America, for the most part, I mean, there's exceptions to every rule, but the corporate world is always trying to figure out a way to get rid of those people. We welcome them with open arms because we know that they have a tremendous amount of wisdom and experience that they can bring to the table. And what do they want? They want freedom. They want to still be able to contribute, many of them, but on their terms, right? What I love is I have no boss. I have mentors, though, and that's been amazing. That has helped me tremendously. We'll talk about that. Yeah, the Encore career, I was just talking about the 74% of the people out there want to continue working, okay? They want to continue working. Quick. Perfect. Past retirement. And you know what the studies show as well with this group? Studies show is that if you continue to work and do something that you enjoy, there's a probability that you're probably going to live longer. Have you ever heard the story of the person who retired and just a few years later they passed away? Or the same year all of a sudden they got sick? How does it happen? Because they spent their whole life doing something they felt meaningful, right? Contributing, and all of a sudden that's gone. But nobody wants another boss, especially in the retirement age, right? So I think that's another big market that we need to be taking a look at as well to help, okay? Okay, skip a couple slides here. Now, how about the need? Is there a need in terms of, well, aren't there other people that do this? Well, let me tell you a little bit about the industry. The industry is basically stuck. They're not growing. They're still doing things the same way they did them 20 years ago, right? In fact, you look at the average age of a financial professional today is 58 years old. Now, I just said we welcome the baby boomers, so it's not the age is the problem. It's that 20 years ago, the average age was 38. So it's the same people. And many of them are transitioning out to retire. So there's a massive gap, a tremendous need. And frankly, the traditional industry, you know, some people have looked at it, but I would have never made it in the traditional industry. And let me tell you a little bit about the traditional industry. Traditional industry, they hire you in, they bring you in, and they want you full-time right away. So they want you to come work full-time, and there's a tremendous amount of pressure to perform. If you don't get X amount of clients to come in, you know what happens? You get fired. You guys remember the Wells Fargo scandal? That whole scam, the whole fraud, what do you think it was about? I have people, friends of mine, who work for them, and they were put under a tremendous amount of pressure to bring in new accounts so they can hit their numbers. So they felt so much pressure, they started to create fraudulent accounts. This is what happened. This is factual what happened with them, right? And so I'm not saying they're all that way. That wouldn't be accurate. I'm just saying that model, you're dealing with people's money. Should you be under that kind of pressure, one little click of a button and you can alter somebody's life the wrong way, right? And so when we look at this, we see this big need, right? But the industry is shrinking right now. It's not growing. Within the next 2 years alone, look at this, the talent deficit for the financial and business services industry could reach almost 3 million workers globally, and that shortage of professionals could spike to almost 10.7 million by 2030. So I don't know about people talking about there's no jobs. There's more, we need more people in this industry than what I would say is one of the biggest, this in tech. Because more and more people need that. Now more than ever, we need this direction. We need this education. There's less and less dependence on the government and your employer, right? I mean, how many people have a pension today? Very few. Even the ones that have a pension, many of them are in trouble. So what do we need? We need to be able to take financial responsibility. Well, if we can't take financial responsibility for something we don't understand, and who's going to help them? The traditional industry, again, there's one particular company, they sent out a memo to all their advisors, and they said, stop. Basically, they said, I'm summarizing, is that we're not going to pay you to help broke people anymore. And you know what they consider broke? People who had less than $250,000. Well, that would be the median baby boomer. They're all broke then. So no wonder when you walk into some institutions, what they're trying to do is get you more debt because it's a lot more profitable, right? So you combine all that together, it presents, once again, a big opportunity and a big need. Now, why have we been able to have success in our system? You know, what is unique about us? Well, we're part of the gig economy. You guys familiar with the gig economy? It's the independent workers, right? Uber is part of the gig. Lyft is part of the gig economy, right? But we're like a gig economy, except we're a professional service. So one of the things about being a gig economy is that you're independent and you get a chance to work for yourself. So you can put as much as you want into this and as little as you want it. The more you put, the more you earn. The less you put, the less you earn. I love it because, see, I'm a big believer in what you put into something, you're going to get out of it. I don't believe if I'm a healthy adult, I don't believe in being a victim. I believe that you have the opportunity, if someone gives it to you, to do something with it, especially if you live here in the United States, right? And so one of the things that we did that's allowed us to grow is that we looked outside of the financial industry. How can you change an industry if you're going to look inside it? We couldn't. So we looked outside. And so one of the industries that we copied our model off of is the real estate industry. Okay? Does anyone know any realtors? Yeah. Right? Everybody knows a realtor, right? They're probably trying to say, hey, next time you want to sell a house, if you know somebody who's selling and somebody who's buying, I can help you. Well, many of them start part-time. Remax, Keller Williams, they allow you to come in part-time. They have a brokerage, so basically somebody who manages that office, and then there's a bunch of people that work in there. Many of them start part-time. Some of them make it to a full-time. Some of them just get their license to do investments. So we looked at that industry and said, we want to copy that model and allow people to come in part-time because the rest of the industry wasn't doing that. And that's one of the reasons why we are growing, and most of what the industry is doing is shrinking, okay? It has a lot to do with it. Let's keep going. So we look at the system, okay? And I kind of look at my business and just trying to compare it. I would say that 60% of the people, roughly around 60% of people who work with me are part-time. And some of them never want to go full-time. They just want to make an extra couple $1,000s a month so they can catch up on their savings. Like Todd was just showing you on that chart, how much you have to save. The other 40% are full-time, and many of them have made large ambitions. Some people just want to supplement, make an extra 50 grand a year, and we have thousands of people who do that. We have thousands of people who've earned a six-figure income in our business. So it's really what you want, but it's the system that makes it possible, okay? So what are some of the key parts of our system? If you can see that there, I'd say the biggest thing is that it's a level playing field. That's really important today, especially we're talking about a lot of level playing field and social injustice. Well, our diversity of background, age, ethnicity, experience level means everyone has an equal chance to create success. Our business model proves that. We are the most diverse organization in the entire industry. Right here in this room, you see all different races and backgrounds, different age groups. Our age, we got people that work with me that are 18 years old and 75 years old. I even have a lady in her 80s work with me, Doesn't matter. We have people who are part of the majority, if you want to call it that. We got people who are part of the minority. It doesn't matter. In fact, you look at gender inequality, and that's a real issue. In our industry, it's approximately 80% men and 20% ladies. Okay? In our company, it's about 50-50. In fact, we're ranked the #1 advisor group, right? A broker-dealer, investment advisor group. For women, if I'm not mistaken, it's 8 years in a row. It's not even close. So the most diversified and the most well-balanced. And it's all because of our model. See right there, that's the proof that what we're doing works, okay? And you know what I love about it? It's all done organically because nobody controls it. Whether you are 50 years old when you join or you're 20 years old when you become part of this business, if it fits for you, you have the same standard to rise. You meet the standard, you rise. You do this, you get that. Nobody has different standards. There's no politics. One of the things I love about this. It's a duplicatable system, which is really important because we all have different talents, right? Some person have different level of experience and knowledge, right? So you got to have a system where doesn't matter what your background is, as long as it's a good one, right? A clean one. If you follow that system, you can have success. And that's what really helped me. If I didn't have that duplicatable system, I would not have been able to have success because my brother and I didn't come from, a background where we knew affluent people. We just knew a lot of people who could put away $50 a month or $100 a month. Or maybe they had a little bit of money set aside and they were just looking to reposition that money. And so by helping a lot of people, we were able to build our practice. And now, of course, we can handle anything. We have many affluent clients now. We can do massive retirement plans for big companies. We manage millions of dollars, billions of dollars, depending on the company. So we have the ability to help the big, but we also have a system that allows us to help the average person. And that's something that is really important to us. But that's up to you how you choose to run your model. Okay? Is digital marketing important? How many of you looked at your phone in the last hour, right? How many of us have gotten a text message in the last 10 minutes? How many of us were on social media today? Everything is digital, right? Think about it. I remember VHSs, right? I watch a movie, I pop the VHS in, pop it in, press play. Now somebody sends me a video, I can watch it instantly. So it's really important that you have digital. Well, we have digital support. We have on-demand, which is amazing. So we have our own channel, on-demand video channel. We have podcasts. I love the podcast because I get an opportunity to learn from people who are more successful than me, who allow me to leverage their knowledge and their experience. I can pop in the podcast, listen to that, and I can learn more about different areas of the business. If I want to grow my practice or I want to learn about a specific area of investments or protection or any one of the 7 money milestones, we have access to that. Okay. Now, it's important then, right? This is how I started, right? Like those of us who are here today, and we appreciate that. And I'm glad that we have a 17,000 square foot office with, I believe it's something like 6 different classrooms that we have here. And we are looking forward to getting some normal, but at the same time, that was limiting, wasn't it? It's limited because if you couldn't be here tonight and that was our only means, then we would have all these people that are out here listening. And that would limit our ability to reach others. So even though we have that, digital is a much better and a more efficient way. We have people from all over the country dialed in right now, listening and learning about this firm. We couldn't do that before, and that's awesome. So that's what comes back again to our platform. I need to explain that because we're in all 50 states. So a lot of people who get into this industry, they're stuck to their zip code. I remember my State Farm agent, that guy, he just retired recently. He's in the same corner when I was 16 years old. That was his office, and that's it. He just had that neighborhood. I came in and I was able to expand, and now with the digital, of course, there's no limitations. We can go anywhere, and that's awesome because people need help everywhere. Okay, our crusade is powered by innovation. Leadership is so important. I mentioned it briefly earlier, but I want to say it again. Technology is big. We bring together high touch, high tech. But the leadership is really important. How many of you like to do things the hard way? Nobody, right? Sometimes we do it the hard way. Well, the beauty of this is that as mentors, the people that we have that mentors, they've already come before us. So we get to leverage their experience, essentially the mistakes that they made, so that we can learn how to not do it the wrong way and do it faster, right? So what it took us maybe years to do, someone can do much quicker when you start to look at the big picture, okay? So mentorship, very important. Products, that's important when you're dealing with in this industry. You know, I like to compare us like a Best Buy. When you go, or an Amazon or a Costco, probably be a little bit better. We are distribution of financial services. So we educate first, and we find what the need is, and then we help that person. And so what we do with the part-time people, I didn't mention this earlier, this is important. So if you're starting new in this industry, you're assigned a specialist. You know, we call it a trainer. Somebody who most of the time is full-time, and they work with you hand in hand, right? Or Zoom to Zoom, right? Now it's with the technology to work with you so that you can learn. So that's why our model works. If you had to just figure it out on your own and do this part-time, it would be too difficult. And that's why I was able to have that success. So let's talk about making money here. I think this is really important here as we touch on, because I know people want to make money. We want to make money, right? We didn't just come and join tonight for no reason. Part of it is maybe just the support, but it's also important to know how we do get compensated. One way we get compensated is just through personal income, right? So let's say you help somebody invest someone's 401k, or you help somebody invest for their future, or you protect the family. You know, I have 2 young children. Anything were to happen to me, you know, that would be a big problem. So my biggest asset is not my house. It's not my car. It's me. It's my ability to earn income, so protecting me, right? So you can make personal income, and that's a great way, and that's where you can make some really good part-time income. Or you can choose to do what many of our partners have done, our Evolve Financial partners, and that is to teach other people, to build an agency. Just like that real estate, right? Example I gave earlier, I have a real estate office. If people want to come in part-time, the more people have work with me, the more people who are selling homes. It's the same concept here. We give people an opportunity. Someone gave me the opportunity, brought me in, they trained me, they taught me until I was able to have my own agency. And that's essentially what the team income is. And so, of course, it's more work to do that. With more work, though, comes potentially more reward. So I'm just skipping here to stuff, and I want to get right to it so we can wrap up tonight. So here's an example of what type of income you can earn. Now, there is thousands and thousands of people who've earned this, okay? And that's a 6-figure income. And in this example is basically if you helped out about 5 people put a plan in for their future, that's the type of income that you can earn, okay? If you decide you want to manage and develop a group, more work, right? More training and development, putting that time in, well, that's where you can get into the multiple of 6 figures, okay? Now this one's big, right? Some people, I know when I first saw this one, 7-figure income. I thought only professional athletes could make that kind of money, right? Or those lucky people. And I tell you, when I look at that, when I first saw it, I was like, well, I don't even know that'll ever happen for me, but I'm just glad that it's not limited. I'm just glad it's not limited. And you know what? I believe if I'm not mistaken, we have almost triple digits in the amount of people that have achieved that. There are people who have multiple of that. In fact, one gentleman was a social worker, came to the United States as a refugee. Another person who was a jewelry owner. Another guy who was running a taxi service. Another person, CPA. So people from all walks of life, some from blue collar backgrounds that have gotten to that level, and then of course, some people from the white collar background. So it's a testament to what's possible if you want to put that time in, okay? So we have made a tremendous impact. In fact, if you look, just in the last 6 months, over 250,000 families have received and read our book here, How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker, okay? We believe this book has a chance to sell 1 million copies this year. Very few books can achieve that. And you can pick this up at Amazon.com. But if somebody invited you and you haven't got this book, make sure you get back to them, right, and let us know. And we can send you a complimentary copy. The only thing that we ask is if we send you one of these is that you do what? You read it, okay? In fact, one of the things that I want to mention, I had to say earlier, as we're going through this, I think one of the best forms of communication is text message, actually. So if there's something particular that Todd talked about, you know, that captures your attention, that Swiss Army knife, just text, hey man, I want to learn about that Swiss Army knife. Just text the person who invited you. If you want to learn more about the book, whatever it is, if you want to learn more about how we make money, anything, just get text or call the person who invited you here so we can make sure we get a meeting set up for you, okay? So continuing on here, now as far as like, is it just a few people that are earning money? Is it a handful? Well, our payroll just in this group here over the last few years was over $200 million. So it's just a lucrative industry. You know, when I first heard these big numbers coming from my background, I said, well, there's something weird about that. And what I found out is there was nothing, because the only way you can stay in this industry is if you do the right thing. It just happens to be a very lucrative industry. The problem is that the traditional way, as I mentioned before, 90% of the people never make it, and they leave with a bad taste because they got put in a high pressure position. We don't do that here. We always start with education. That's why we started with the educational part. Okay. All right. So as I wrap, just a few more slides here. There's really 3 ways to get involved with us. Okay. One is to become a client. You know, maybe that Rule 72 that you saw Todd talk about, or we briefly touched on the 70 money milestones, and the opportunity is not for you because it's not for everybody. I'm going to talk about that in a second. You do need to go through an interview process to see if this is a good fit, okay? But we can help anybody financially that wants our help, okay? No matter how wealthy or how lower income, it doesn't really matter. It just depends on you. I was a low income kid. I was making $6,000 a year. I was a college student. That's low income, okay? But they showed me how to take $50 and start putting a plan to get away from the future. And then obviously as I made more, obviously that changed, and the amount of money I was able to put away has changed. And we've been able to touch thousands of families' lives as a result of them helping a broke college student essentially plan for his future. And if many are interested in part-time, and so going back to just starting your own business and working with us, let's say you're interested in the part-time, you know, what does that really take? I'm not going to go into too much, but I will tell you, it's basically for the investment of a license, you can get started in the biggest industry in the world. One of the first slides we talked about was retail and real estate. If you combine those 2 industries together, this industry is bigger. The financial industry is the largest industry. It's just that it's, in most cases, very high barrier to entry. We've lowered those barriers, and that's why the interview is so important. But you invest the time to get a license, and you can access all of the things that we've talked about here tonight, okay? All right, so let me close with this. What is your level of interest, okay? So this is where the texting comes in, okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, please let us know what your interest level is, okay? So 1 would be like, yeah, I'm not interested, okay? So thank you, I appreciate that. But obviously 10 would be you're very interested, and it depends on what it is, right? So yes, I want an interview for a part-time or full-time position. Like I said, most people start part-time with us, unless you usually have a background or business background. Most of us are going to start on a part-time basis. Yes, I want to complete the 7 money milestones. So maybe you got a good handle on money, right? But you want to learn more about what's the 7 money milestones. In my experience, in 22 years practicing, maybe I can think of 5 people out of the thousands that I've met that had all 7 money milestones in order. The majority of people are missing one area or all of them, okay? So maybe you're concerned about running out of money, that personal income gap that Todd talked about, properly protecting your family, concern about student loan debt. We recently partnered with a group, a company that helps people figure out how to pay off their student loan debt faster, maybe even forgive that debt, okay? So if you're interested, make sure you just text, hey, I don't learn about that student loan debt program. A 401k you need to roll over, it's just sitting there. Hey, I just rolled it over to that one company. What are they with the green line? Yeah, Fidelity. Yeah. Has anybody called you? Is anybody guiding you with that? Do you have a strategy for that? Remember that rate of return we talked about? The difference between 9% and 1%? I can't tell you how many people I've met that just had no idea. That's the difference of being able to enjoy your retirement, right? Or struggle in retirement, right? Very important. Interested in learning how the master's class. So one of the things we've done is we have a follow-up class here where we'll teach more in depth about the finances. We call it our master class. So if you're interested in that, we can invite you to that. Tell us if you're interested in our next EDE class, where if you're not interested in maybe our industry, but you still want to learn, hey, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? You know, people start their own business every day. You know how many of them make it? Very few. because they hear this guy on YouTube, because I don't know if you know, everybody's a successful business person now on YouTube. I don't know if you guys saw this. These guys, and they're going to coach you, right? They're going to coach you if they have no experience to do it. I mean, but hey, that's the internet. That's cool. It's just what's going on right now. And now you jump in and go invest all this money, but you don't even know what to look for. We'll give you a guide on what to look for in a good business. And one of them is it better be pandemic proof, right? So anyway, you know someone that would be interested, right? We do have a lot of great clients, a lot of friends that are part of our group. That's just not for them. And we, of course, we appreciate them. But they joined us tonight to learn more. You know someone that can benefit or is looking for a career change or just getting help, let us know. I think that's important that you just share. We believe in we believe in the law of abundance here. If you help people, the good word gets out. And so I'll close with this. Even though I was young when I started, I was really young. I was fortunate to be exposed to a lot of different people. I got a chance to look at the corporate route. This was the 90s, right? The corporate route looked pretty good back then, actually. In fact, entrepreneurial route was kind of scary, right? You didn't have all this technology and leverage. I mean, my first laptop was $3,600. I had to lease it because I couldn't afford it. I mean, that's when you needed a computer, right? So it was tough to be an entrepreneur 20 years ago. But I think today, I don't think you have an option. I think with the way things are moving, you have to have a plan E. You should at least consider a plan E so that when that change happens, you're able to adapt to it. But when I look at that, I was looking, I said, what is it that I want to do? And I looked at the corporate path. My dreams were too big for that. I didn't want to one day just get downsized because I saw that happening, right? I looked at my traditional business, running a construction operation or maybe getting a restaurant business, but I saw the limitations of that, right? Because once again, I was always going to lose my best people. Then I started to really study this model, and I decided, why don't I just give it a chance? Let's see where it takes me, right? And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I gave it a shot. And it reminds me of a quote from Martin Luther King, and he has so many. But one of them is, he says that most people die at age 18. We just don't bury them until they're like 65, 75, 85. What did he mean by that? What did he mean by that? They give up, right? One of his best messages, I think his whole message, a lot of it was about hope. It was about right? There was a lot, right? But that was the big message from my point of view, that he was about hope. He talked a lot about hope. You have control, right? And so what most people do, and what I had a choice, is I've got these big dreams, but the vehicles I have in front of me, they don't fit. So I had to find a vehicle that was unlimited. And the more I learned about this, I saw a lot of people living the unlimited lifestyle. And that's really why I got it. So you can either basically shrink your goals to fit your vehicle or find a new vehicle. And so I'll leave you with this last thing here. There was an article that came out years ago. I remember reading it, USA Today. And they asked 10,000 people age 80 and older, okay? If they can do it all over again, what would they have done different, right? You're at the end there, right? You're looking, maybe you got 10 years, 20 if you're lucky, right? Real lucky. And you know what most of them said? I wish I would have taken more chances. I wish I would have started my own business. I wish I would have. And so here they are now. And when I read that, I was like, I don't want to live a life of regret. I don't want to be looking back and saying what I could have, should have. And so that's why I gave this thing a chance. I'm glad I did. I had a lot of fear. I know many of us did, but I didn't know how it was going to turn out. It just happened to turn out really good for our family and for thousands of people that work with us.